What's good, Osiris here? The debate's over. No need to talk about it anymore. We'll end it on this video. At least the part about the constitutionality or the legality of the Ron DeSantis and the Florida government move against Disney. This is it. This is the last one. The debate's over. The Intercept wrote an article on it, and they tried to sneak it in that the debate was over. They said Florida Governor Ron DeSantis attacks on Disney may violate First Amendment. And then they kind of snuck it in there where they said some experts said it'd be hard to prove in court. Yeah, pretty hard to prove in court. Let's listen to, you don't have to take my word for it. If you think that Disney has some type of First Amendment right to go back at Florida to sue, listen to Robert Barnes.
Yeah, so I think from a legal perspective, Disney's got no case. So people who think Disney's got a case have not done enough actual First Amendment law. So
Wait, I don't think, let me hear that one more time.
Yeah, so I think from a legal perspective, Disney's got no case. So people who think Disney's got a case have not done enough actual First Amendment law. So as even the Intercept interviewed some liberal First Amendment lawyers.
Just to be clear, you never needed to and don't need to be a lawyer to understand that Disney had no case. People who are not on the left, a lot of people can be susceptible to emotions and not know how to channel those emotions. When it comes to law, if it's done properly, those emotions are out. They're out the window. There's no way to prove this. If you get into the motive of every legislative body in the country, then no law could be passed. Doesn't take a lawyer to understand that.
Lawyers that actually practice First Amendment law said, no, Disney wouldn't win in a challenge. Because in order to show retaliatory prosecution, you have to show that the state legislatures, that every member of the state legislature that voted for this, or at least the majority, voted for it in order to specifically punish Disney and had no other policy purpose behind it. And that was the same with the governor's sign. That hurdle, to my knowledge, that hurdle has never been met, evidentiary wise. And
notice he said that you have to prove that they have not only the motive, but no other legal argument for passing the legislation. So what he's saying is, okay, I'm a part of the Florida government that passed this against Disney. And I maybe even tweeted or said, I'm tired of the wokeness. This is in retaliation. When it comes down to court, how much was it? 50% retaliation? Or when I said it was retaliation, I said it was like retaliation, but I think it was like 10%. And 90% was good legislation. You can't get into these murky waters. It makes no sense. You can't police it. You can't judge it. At the end of the day, you have to look at the legislation itself. You can't go inside somebody's head.
In a case. And the reason is, one, judges hate to inquire into motivations of legislation. This has come up in cases where people allege legislation was passed by bribery. Court said, can't get involved. Nope, doesn't matter. So if as long as it passed the legislature, even there, often whether a bill passed, the courts have said whatever Congress or whatever the legislative branch says determines it. To give an example, there's the 16th Amendment to the United States Constitution, the one authorizing the income tax. If you dig in, you find lots of problems with how that was purportedly added to the Constitution. What do you think the U.S. Supreme Court said? Think they were going to dig into that mess? Not a chance. They said if the archivist said it passed as part of the Constitution, final word, it's unreviewable. So it's because they are not going to get into the motivations of these legislators. That's never going to happen. Just look at the Trump cases where Trump is being targeted by the executive branch overtly, people who ran for office saying, I'm going to go and investigate him, elect me, then went and investigated him. Courts have said even that wasn't violated the First Amendment. And that's specific in particular, that's real evidence.
And I'll disagree with him a little bit there. It's the same. Because the person could say, well, I said I'm going to run on Trump, but I really only meant when I went after him, I'm really trying to protect democracy. So I meant 5% was retaliation, 95% was to protect democracy. It doesn't work. I love Robert Barnes is, if you don't follow this, make sure I'm highlighting this. This is a clip from Viva and Barnes. And I subscribe to them on Locals. They are just outstanding together. I'm going to digress for a second. Tim, bring them back on. I know it was a heck of a thing to get them on the first time. When you do interviews, it's tough to stay out the way. Bring them back, Tim. Let Robert Barnes shine. Just like you let Marjorie Taylor Greene shine, bring them back. Barnes is reserved. So you've got to kind of talk to Viva like, okay, let's throw him topics that will get him hype. He almost like has a photographic memory or something. These guys like Alex Jones, and Tim Pool almost seems like he has a photographic memory. And Barnes, like the recall, it's crazy. He's great.
Not trying to guess what 60 plus House members
and he's fair. If it's against the right or what, he doesn't even care. He's about what's right, the law, grounded in truth.
20 plus senators and the governor was attempting to do. So what you end up doing is you've got to look at the law itself. Does the law itself on the face violate First Amendment rights? Well, the law itself doesn't even reference Disney. So it's hard for Disney to claim this law on its face is meant to retaliate against us when they're not even mentioned in it. That's problem one. Problem two is they also took out all of the special districts before 1968. So they took out a half dozen other ones. So they're like, we're all of, and people that have and districts that have nothing to do with Disney. So in reality, they would never be able to prove, and a court wouldn't even allow them to kind of try to produce the evidence to prove a First Amendment violation. So it's going nowhere in the courts. Instead, Disney's looking at whether they can make a technical argument about whether it was in a special session versus a general session, whether it has to go to referendum, etc. So on the legal side, it won't work. But let's talk about the broader political side of it.
Well, hold on. One question first. It might also be relevant that, from what I understand, Robert, unless I'm wrong, it was a few years ago where it was sort of a bipartisan move to actually do this 3 years before this incident, or where Democrat politicians also wanted to strip Disney of their special privileges, unless I'm mistaken.
Yeah. No, the other fact that's relevant, even if they were willing to look at motivation, even if they were ignored that there's no facial violation here, this is clearly facially neutral, even if they ignored the fact that 5 other special districts were also stripped of it, even if they ignored that there are independent public policy reasons for this to be passed. The other aspect of this is, as you noted at the beginning, this is a privilege. Right? This is not a situation like, okay, Disney lobbied against us, let's impose a special tax on Disney. Disney now has to pay a 5% surtax on all their future profits, right? That would be a better, stronger argument, because they're right on the face of it. Somebody's getting treated. This is Disney no longer gets the special benefit of a special district that they lobbied for on false premises about 50 years ago. And when I say lobbied for on false premises, they were promising a bunch of things they never delivered on. And the other problem with this was Disney's policing. The reason why also it's relevant, like this is where you could have had a political motivation. You could say Disney is supporting groomer activities in schools.
I was not sure about this one. I couldn't find the exact information when I looked it up. I just did a quick look up, and I'm so glad he touched on it. This was the point I was talking about on the other channel. They're policing themselves on top of it all. And what are some of the big scandals that they could be? I'm not even alleging that they could be, hypothetically, any company that has this power. What could they be possibly hiding?
So is this chat here? Is there any truth to this?
Yeah, that's what I'm about to get to. Disney was self-policing. So Disney got to have all the legal authority of a small town. This wasn't just about taxes. It was one critical thing is they could issue bonds, tax-free bonds, as if they were a municipality, right? So they got tax-free debt that they got to issue, which had a whole range of benefits for Disney. That's the more consequential financial one over time. And there'll be some complexity about transferring that debt to the local counties that they're a part of. But that can be done without too much hurdle. They have more than a year now to fix it. But Peter Schweitzer raised this problem back in the late 1990s. For example, people didn't know Disney was a key secret partner in one of the biggest pay-per-view porn sites that was out there in the 90s, right? I mean, Peter Schweitzer, the great investigative reporter, he wasn't well known back then. He's much more well known now, Clinton Cash, the secret alliances of China and so forth. But back then in fact, the book is only available in hardcover, but he goes into how Disney had abused its special relationship power to cover up for a disproportionate child abuse problem on Disney. And if you think about it, right, I mean, even if Disney had no complicity or culpability whatsoever, Disney is going to be the kind of place where you're going to have, because where do you have broad access to children? If you're an abuser, you look for where you have opportunity. It's like, this is crime in nature. It's like the first time I was moving off campus at Yale, the cop said, here's what to look for. And he explained crime is a crime of opportunity. So don't pick an apartment in a neighborhood that doesn't have good lighting. Live in a residential place. Don't live in an apartment complex that you have to walk upstairs for. Things of this nature. And it was great advice. I mean, I lived right across from the Y. It turned out great, but that's another story for another day. But the same dynamic. Crimes are crimes of opportunities and particularly pedophiles and child abusers are really the ones aggressive. That's why they show up in foster homes. That's why they show up in, frankly, the priesthood. That's why they show up in a range of places. They have disparate access. And that's why they were going to show up in Disney. And now the key was, what did Disney do about it? Did Disney expose it? Did Disney prosecute it? No. Disney was covering it up, because look at it from Disney's perspective. Who's going to bring their little 6-year-old to Disney World if it's hey, let's meet the local pedo? So it's not going to work well for Disney's marketing. So the reality is Disney's support of grooming in schools correlates to Disney's history of problems of protecting child abusers that is directly relevant to this law. So independent of all of the other grounds, the legislature in Florida and the governor of Florida, the good governor of Florida, had an absolute legal right, and I would say duty, to strip Disney of this special protection because it correlates to problematic criminal behavior taking place at Disney. And if you're Disney, do you think you're going to bring a suit and allow DeSantis to document and detail these issues? No. Disney will never sue on these grounds.
Now, that's something I never thought about. So they sue on this. So DeSantis, and that would be an all-out war, legal warfare. They're going to bring up everything, all the bodies that were hidden in the closet, all the skeletons, come on out. And they would never want to do it, at least from that aspect. You can hear Barnes. He goes a little bit further than I would go, but isn't that the type of dude you would want to represent you? Absolutely.
Be my early prediction. They'll figure out some other way to deal with it while they're dealing with their stock market, their stock going, because it turns out grooming isn't popular with parents. South Park portrayed Mickey Mouse the way it did because it had a lot of truth in it. Right? Mickey Mouse is a criminal gangster in the South Park world that's randomly banging every animal that exists and is probably responsible for the pandemic, right? In the South Park world, right? But that's because there was deep truth. They often hint at real truths with some of these people. Even, where I don't agree with their criticism, there's usually a truth to that criticism.
So that's the clip there. I'm going to end with this. I had an interaction with Dr. Carlin Boysenko. I've talked about her before. She's great on a lot of topics. And we had a little, talking about this. And she said, to the best of my knowledge, no Democratic state government has punished a private conservative corporation for protected political speech they don't like through legislation. But Florida has done that to Disney. That's the position I disagree with. As you can see, she got ratioed. Anyone with that take is going to get ratioed, whether the people understand the law or not. This is, I'll tell you why, show you here. So I said, are you making a legal or moral case? She says both. She's not. She's conflating them. So I said the Florida law didn't mention Disney. What is the legal case? She does not answer that question. Again, she's great. There's no beef here. What I'm going to do is, where do we need to take this? What's my point? My point isn't to argue about the legal stuff. We're done with that. Where are we taking this? She said, we all know exactly what it was, and pretending it wasn't, that is pathetic political spin that is beneath your intelligence. I agree completely. That's not a legal case, though. I agree completely. So I said, I agree. We all know it was retaliation morally or ethically or however you want to say it. But that's not even close to a legal case. Trying to make it a legal argument clouds Carlin's point and Jenna Ellis's point. Jenna should know. She's a damn lawyer. That's embarrassing. I don't know she must have malintent. Or she's not stupid, so it must be malintent. The real question is, do we want to be in a union, in this relationship of 50 states, when morals are being thrown out the window? That's the problem. We know that's wrong, and we don't care it's wrong morally, because is it right that Marjorie Taylor Greene's on trial right now? Is it right that at least one, maybe more, I didn't follow all of it, J6 defendant, I did the video a while back, actually had to unlive himself, or didn't have to, but chose to unlive himself? They didn't get a fast and speedy fair trial. Some of them were in the dungeons for over a year. For what? Trespassing charges? Is all of this fair? I can't come with a argument saying it's morally wrong, guys. We got to stop it. I did do that with Jesse Kelly because he was talking about doxing citizens. So libs of TikTok got doxed. So that's my line. Everybody has their line in a different place. My line is, when it comes to citizens, doxing is off the table. But when it comes to corporations and this, I am fully fine with this. We're talking about morals. There is no right or wrong. It's not a legal argument here. The point is, do we want to be in this relationship? And she came back with a great comment. She said, you're not the good guy if you expect the government to use force to enforce your morals. Bars. Greed. Great comment. I'm going to say it again. You're not the good guy if you expect the government to use force to enforce your morals. The problem is, Dr. Carlin, is that we are in a relationship that we shouldn't be in. We are in Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard. They were in a relationship they never should have been in. So what happens is you have this ugly tit for tat. And you look in the mirror and you don't like yourself. Why am I doing this? It's because you're in a bad relationship. That's why. That's why people are celebrating this. Concerned parents say, wait, I don't like what's happening in the classroom. And before you're able to blink your eyes, they're labeled as potential terrorists. A black guy runs the car into a Christmas parade at Waukesha, and it's like it never happened because he's black, potentially. The morals are out the window. The decorum is out the window. That's what we need to talk about. We are in an American fifth generational civil war. What that means is it's information online, social media. It's not fought with weapons, thankfully. Doesn't mean it's not dangerous. I'm not saying that to be salacious. That's what's happening. This is an example of that. There are no rules to warfare. The other side will retaliate and things will escalate until we get that divorce. One side is going to take that vodka bottle, throw it on the other side, and sever a finger. That's where the escalation goes. Join me, Dr. Carlin, Jenna, anyone else. Stop making a legal argument that's not there, and let's just talk about morals. Let me know what you think. Take care.